Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church in Eugene. We're empowered by love. We transform ourselves and we still make noise. My name is Izzy Kreka. My pronouns are she, her, hers. With me today is our minister, Rev. Jen Youngsun, collaborative pianist, Suzanne Giordano, vocalist, Bob Sorintz, and board president, Daniel Blades. Working behind the scenes, we have our technical communications coordinator, Kat Johnson, along with volunteers, Amy Desert and Phil Stevens. Today, we are also welcoming new members. We gather in worship to find meaning and to live more deeply. Worship creates connections within, among, and beyond us, calling us to our better selves, to live with wisdom and compassion. Whoever you are, whomever you love, and whatever your image of the holy, we're glad you're here. If you are visiting us today, we'd love to hear from you and invite you to fill out the visitor form as you feel called. The link is being dropped in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you to all the technical people. We should be good now. Yes, that sounds great. Good Sunday morning, everyone. It's so nice to see all of you. My name is Jen Youngsun. I use the pronouns she and her, and I serve this wonderful congregation as its settled minister. So here we are in the middle of winter holidays, and oh, you can't all see it. I'm sorry. Hey, can we get a shot of the Christmas tree? Yay, mobile cam. Thank you, Steve. As you can see by this huge tree over here, we are in the middle of the holiday season, and I want to thank the elves from the Buildings and Grounds group that somehow miraculously got this huge tree in here and made it look so beautiful for today. But I want to also alert you to some of the really fun festivities coming up, and I don't want you to miss any of it, especially the bazaar this Saturday. You do not have to buy anything. You can just come and enjoy music and seeing people in person and hang out with some of your friends. I think there will be music, right? And there will be singing out in the playground, caroling, Christmas caroling in the playground. So that should be fun. This Saturday from 1 to 4. And we're looking forward to Christmas Eve services, but we still need a few animals. So we need a few critters for our 4 o'clock Zoom Christmas Eve pageant. And this is going to be a really wonderful time to honor your inner oxen, your inner mouse, or we also need a star. So people of all ages are welcome to sign up. We'll provide costumes if you don't have them, and we can rehearse with you the sound of oxen. What does an oxen sound like? All right, we're going to all practice the oxen. You can contact Sarah Sauter, who is our faith formation interim director and the director of this pageant. So please be prepared to have some fun and sign up, all ages. After that, or no, right before that, a couple of days before that, on Tuesday the 21st, is our Solstice Spiral. We think it's going to rain, and so I think we're going to plan to have it indoors right in here. A very meditative and beautiful service from 5 to 7. And then at 7 o'clock, we're going to do some drumming and make some more noise. And so we hope you'll join us for all those festivities to bring in the winter season.
We light this chalice with these words by Alice Blair Wesley. We pledge to travel together in the ways of truth and affection as best we know them now. We may learn them in the days to come, that we and our children may be fulfilled, and that we may speak to the world in words and actions of peace and goodwill.
During this winter holiday season, we're lighting the Advent Wreath on the 4 Sundays leading up to Christmas. And this is so that we can focus on the deeper meanings these days. In the previous weeks, we lit candles for hope and for peace. And today we light the pink one for joy. Especially during these times of difficulty or distress, we look for ways that we can find that sense of gratitude and find the joy that is present everywhere. We find joy in the people that we love, in the beauty that we find, and the things that we create out of nothing sometimes, and the deeply held traditions that we keep and pass on. For hope, for peace, for joy. From our Unitarian Universalist hymnal, these opening words from Kenneth Patton. We arrive out of many singular rooms, walking over the branching streets. We come to be reassured that the siblings around us and they surround us. We enlarge our voices in common speaking and singing. We try again that solitude found in the midst of those who with us seek their hidden reckonings. Our eyes reclaim the remembered faces. Their voices stir the surrounding air. The warmth of their hands assures us, and the gladness of our spoken names resounds. This is the reason of cities, of homes, of assemblies in the houses of worship, because it is good to be with one another. It is good, especially on New Member Sunday. This is a good day because we celebrate the strength and the perseverance of this religious community and speak together the words of promise and of faith. So come, let us unite in the spirit of our covenant. Come, let us worship together. Being in an open, covenanted community means that we get to constantly meet new friends. We get to deepen our relationships with them. And it means that when we say we know who we mean. And that always means that every day it means one more. Today, we formally welcome the people who recently joined our congregation. Their stories and their photos, I think, are going to be in next week's weekly connection. So look in your inboxes for their stories and their photos. And please make a special effort to reach out to them if you haven't met them already. And so I want to ask Bob Surintz, Linda Krantz, Marcia Gladhart, Phyllis Klein, and Christy's already here, but if the rest of you will come up and join me up front. Christy Osborne is zooming in, so you can see her right there. So she's definitely part of this group. Good morning. It's so nice to see you. Wow, this is very cool. I also want to acknowledge today Al and Susan Brody, who were members and then they moved away and then they came back and now are members again. And also Phil Stevens over there, who did the same thing, moved away and then has come back and now is remembered. We'll say it that way. They are remembered today. So admittedly, the whole membership process during the pandemic has been a little unusual, right? And so the first thing I want to say to all of you is thank you for your persistence. Thank you for wanting to join this community so badly that you were willing to track down people and email over and over again. And so I love that spirit. And I welcome all of you. I also want to thank the three mighty members of the membership committee. We've got Sharon here, we've got Amy back there, and Peggy, I think, is not able to be with us today, but she's also part of that mighty, mighty team. When you all signed the book, as you did several weeks ago or several months ago, you signed voluntarily to join membership of this congregation. And you didn't sign on, though, to a particular set of beliefs or a set of creed. What you did enter into is a promise, a covenant, which I think is much more challenging, actually. So you are entering into two covenants, actually. One is with all of us as member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association. You are bound in covenant to other UUs all across the world who have covenanted to affirm and promote our principles and purposes. And then the next covenant that you're entering is the covenant with this particular group of Unitarian Universalists. And so we have a UUCE covenant of right relations. And in a few minutes, I'll ask Daniel to lead us all in reciting that. But first, we have some gifts. Do you need some help, Sharon? That's Bob Surance. This is Lisa Krantz. This is Marcia Gladhart. And this is Phyllis Klein. Welcome all of you. We welcome you into this community with all of our open hearts. Our lives are already enriched by your presence and your gifts. And so let us all renew our covenant with each other by repeating its words, and President of the board, Daniel Blades, will lead us.
So please repeat after me. We covenant to build a religious community, guided by respect and sustained by our principles. We will listen appreciatively, speak with care, express gratitude, honor our differences, and assume good intentions. We will communicate directly, honestly and compassionately, particularly when we are in conflict. When we hurt one another, we will ask for forgiveness and make amends. And when we are hurt, we will try to forgive and reconnect in a spirit of right relationship. In celebration of the common mission that unites us, we will abide by this covenant.
Our reading today is The Low Road by Marge Piercy. What can they do to you? Whatever they want. They can set you up, they can bust you, they can break your fingers, they can burn your brain with electricity, blur you with drugs so you can't walk, can't remember. They can take your child, wall up your lover. They can do anything you can't stop them from doing. How can you stop them? Alone, you can fight, you can refuse, you can take revenge, what revenge you can. But they roll over you. But two people fighting, back to back, can cut through a mob. A snake dancing file can break a cordon. An army can meet an army. Two people can keep each other sane, can give support, conviction, love, massage, hope, sex. Three people are a delegation, a committee, a wedge. With four, you can play bridge and start an organization. With six, you can rent a whole house, eat pie for dinner with no seconds, and hold a fundraising party. A dozen make a demonstration. 100 fill a hall. 1,000 have solidarity and your own newsletter. 10,000 power and your own paper. 100,000 your own media. 10 million your own country. It goes on, one at a time. It starts when you care to act. It starts when you do it again, and they said no. It starts when you say, we, and you know who you mean, and each day you mean one more.
I want to thank you, Izzy, for stepping up when one of our worship associates called in sick. Izzy said, I'll do it. So thank you for doing everything this week. One of our religious ancestors once said that churches should come into being as a covenant among persons, not through some sort of common assent to a doctrine, not through sacraments administered by priests, hierarchically arranged or apostolically descended. Instead, he said, people should join themselves by mutual agreement to travel together. I like that so much. We are definitely going somewhere as a people. And so we're inviting people to travel with us. He continues saying, People should join themselves together by mutual agreement to travel together, to keep the commandments, to choose their own ministers and their own teachers, to put forth and debate questions, to learn the truth, to welcome the voice of protest and complaint and dissent. So you did not join a creed. You didn't join a particular doctrine, but you joined a covenant. You have joined a church, both well established here in Eugene for over 100 years and also in the midst of change. And a church that no one has seen before. After nearly 2 years spent apart, we're now re-emerging and emerging with a new minister and new staff and new members. We're getting to know each other again and for the first time. Last week, I quoted the poet Toy Derricott, who claimed that joy is an act of resistance. And I would say to those who joined today that this is a very unusual time to join a church, and I would say that it is a courageous act of resistance. I echo Toy today because joining a civic or religious institution is not really in style these days. Voluntary associations were really strong in the mid-20th century, but they really weren't able to keep up as institutions with all of the huge social change that was going on at that time. Plus, they behaved very badly. Some of our most prominent institutions behaved so badly and lost the trust of the public. And it's hard to regain trust when you've lost it in that way. More and more people, it seems, are moving into more tightly knit tribes of like-minded people who come together primarily based on similar political viewpoints. We've become, everything has become so political these days. And so rather than uniting around our common humanity, more and more we're uniting around our opinions and our preferences. And so that's why I say it's countercultural and it is an act of resistance to join things like the Rotary and the Junior League and the Neighborhood Association and your local arts center and your local church. Because against all odds, we keep civic engagement alive. We help to keep public discourse alive, and we lift up the moral and ethical arguments for justice making. It's really important that we're here, and it's important that you join. Joining a church, especially in these times, resists the prevailing winds that blow fear all the time, that are blowing distrust and hatred of others, all those winds that are blowing despair. Joining a church moves against those forces. So all of us came to the Unitarian Universalist Church in Eugene from somewhere else, right? Where did you come from before you were here in this church? Texas, Alabama, Louisiana, Tennessee, Washington, Michigan, Oregon, California. You came from other churches. Some of you came from the road of self-exploration and just personal spiritual journey. Some of you came from the road of liberation, where you finally said, "Oh, the religion of my people, that's not my religion." You came from the road that actually spiraled back onto itself, where you found yourself in the same place where you started so many years ago, and yet it led you to a totally new place. So no matter how long you have been a member, this church was already established before you got here, right? Even our longest standing member still arrived in a church that was already formed. It already had its own norms and expectations of new people, right? So every group has its way of doing things. Every group has its way of saying this is kind of within the boundaries of normal, quote, acceptable behavior. And that's just the way groups work, right? I'm still learning all of the norms and expectations of this congregation and this community because we're just starting to know each other. And of course, those norms and expectations always change because the addition of newcomers brings a fresh wave of thoughts and ideas, and every newcomer who comes helps us to widen our welcome. So, new members, here are the expectations that we, your community, have of you. We ask that you participate in worship and other activities. We ask that you share your gifts and talents. We ask that you take responsibility for your own spiritual growth. We ask that you let yourself be cared for by us. And we ask that you care for one another. We also have made it clear that you have joined a church that publicly states its intention to dismantle racism and supremacy culture wherever it is found. This means that we are going to keep widening our welcome to create a larger center. So since we've already said this, this is kind of the train we're on, and this is the track we're on. We welcome everyone, of course, right? Anybody is welcome. And we have stated what our purpose is and what our mission is, and we've been very clear. We've also been clear that we want to, as much as possible, if we have occupied the center for much of our lives and much of the life of our church, we are going to practice moving out of that center and allowing space for some new voices and some new bodies to occupy that center. And as we do so, we continue to transform and grow. So we are going to keep spending more and more time together in church. And as we come back and start using the building more and running into each other more, we are inevitably going to bump some elbows, right? I mean, that's just inevitable. We're starting to use the building in ways that we haven't in a very long time. There will be territorial disputes, I'm sure, about storage closets and where we can put chairs and where we're not allowed to do this or what gets hung up on what wall at what time. So because we're not really practiced at being around people who aren't our close family or our close friends, I think a lot of us have just forgotten how annoying human beings can be. And I know that I can be annoying because my brother tells me so. So we're just going to have to offer each other a little more grace than normal, right? We're just going to need to ask for and to offer a little more patience and a little more forgiveness, a few more thank yous and please. We also have to remember how much trauma that a lot of people have gone through these past couple of years. And we are carrying it around with us, even if we don't know we are. I think it's going to take many, many, many years for us to really understand the full impact of this pandemic. So the board and the staff and I have come up with what I think is a fabulous idea. So we're planning a whole set of activities and programs around this topic of how to be in right relationship with each other and how to really live into the full promise of a covenantal community, which is exactly what we are. So here in our community, UUCE, we have a covenant of right relations. It's what Daniel led us in reciting a few minutes ago. And because covenants are not creeds, they're not etched in stone, they have to be revisited, and they should be revisited as a community changes and grows. So the first thing that the board and I are working on right now actually is to convene a committee on right relations. Right now, there's no place for a congregant to go with complaints about a community member, a fellow community member, or issues with the board, or complaints about the minister. There's just no body that will receive those concerns. And so the Committee on Right Relations would be that body that would help our community with those kinds of conflicts. And it would be that body that would hold us accountable to each other for right relationships, for adhering to our promise of right relationship. So that committee is being formed right now. If you know of someone, or if you are someone who might be interested in such a role, just let me know, or Daniel. The next step is a series of workshops that we're going to hold in January on the that Thursday evening slot in January. And we're going to do a deeper look at what it means to be in a covenantal community. Now, as I understand it, a couple of years ago, maybe, you all started a program called Covenantal Conversations. That's what I heard. And so we're just going to continue that, kind of update it and continue that. And all of this work is going to culminate in the Ministers Startup Weekend in mid-March. And that's when we'll all come together and talk about our vision for right relationship. And perhaps at that time, if we're ready, we'll have a new covenant to bless and move forward with. If we don't practice right relationship with each other right now, it really doesn't matter how many new members we welcome, right? It won't matter how many buses we organize to drive to Salem to protest something. It really won't matter how many justice programs that we have, or how many people we're housing in the Conestoga huts. It won't matter, because peace begins in our house, and it must begin in our house before we can be a beacon for others. Covenant is a promise that we make to each other. It is not a matter of doing the right thing. It's a matter of being the person you were born to be. Being in relationship, being connected, being fully human together. When we fail, because we will fail, we will break our promises to each other, then covenant offers forgiveness and a love that will not let us go. Let us covenant with one another to keep faith with the source of life, knowing that we are not our own. Let us covenant with each other to remember that life can be saved even by a small band of people. These people who choose to put into practice an alternative, countercultural way of life, Let us covenant with each other to seek a deeper awareness to a universal love that has never broken faith with us and never will. May this be ever so. Amen. O Spirit of life, we give thanks for all the mysterious and wonderful things, for the drops of rain and the glistening of the sun, and when they combine, rainbows. We're grateful for this gathered community and for new friends and opportunities to make new relationships with each other. And even as we hold all of these joys and all of these gratitudes for every single moment of a precious life, we also hold heavy hearts for the devastation caused in the Midwest and the Mid-South by tornadoes. How is it that wind, invisible to our eyes, can cause so much destruction? Our hearts are heavy as well as we just think about our neighbors in Eugene and in Springfield who have no good shelter from this rain and from the cold. May we find the will and the courage to do what we must to provide housing for every single citizen, every single neighbor. The Spirit of life be with us and comfort us in these days. Make our hearts glad for all of the wondrous gifts and be with us in comfort as we mourn. Amen.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
And now, as you go into the light of this new day and into this brand new week, may you remember to keep your covenant with one another and with the eternal source of love, with our beloved earth, and with the radiant human being that you are. Go in peace, my friends. Blessed be.